everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Veronica, and this week's video I'm going to be sharing 2 new dinner recipes that we had this past week and we absolutely love them. And I'm also going to be sharing the best apple pie bread recipe, so you don't want to miss out. Make sure you stay tuned. But anyway, let's get to cooking. This night for dinner, I fixed Longhorn's famous Parmesan Crusted chicken. The first thing that I done was prepare my marinade. I started off by adding 1/3 cup of olive oil to a large bowl. And then I added in 1/3 cup of ranch dressing. You can use your family's favorite ranch dressing. And then I added in 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. And 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. 1 teaspoon of distilled white vinegar. And 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. You can also use the shortcut method to this marinade and use store-bought Italian salad dressing, but I wanted to make it this way to see how it would taste, and honestly making it homemade was a lot better than buying it at the store. I then added in 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and then I whisked all of those ingredients together until everything was well combined. Here in just a second, you are going to see that I am using thin sliced chicken breast for this recipe. The original recipe calls for regular chicken breast, and you can beat them with a meat tenderizer, but if you've been here for a while, you know that I love the thin sliced chicken breast. I just feel like they have more flavor and they're more tender, so that's what I'm using in this recipe, but you use whatever your family likes. I then placed all of my chicken breast into a large Ziploc bag and poured all of the marinade over the chicken. I then sealed my Ziploc bag and removed all of the air out of it, and I just made sure all of my chicken was well coated in the marinade, and then I set that in the refrigerator and I'll let that marinate overnight. You can either marinate it overnight or for at least 30 minutes in the refrigerator. The next evening, I heated up 2 to 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil in a cast iron skillet. Once my skillet had heated up, I then placed my chicken breast in my skillet and I seared the chicken on each side until each side had a nice golden brown color and the chicken was thoroughly cooked in the middle. Once my chicken breast was finished cooking, I then placed my chicken into a large baking dish. You can cover your baking dish with some foil, and that way it will help keep your chicken warm while you are preparing your Parmesan crust. I then started preparing my Parmesan crust. In a bowl, I had chopped up 1/2 cup of provolone cheese, and I added in 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese and 6 tablespoons of ranch dressing. I then mixed all of those ingredients together and I microwaved those ingredients in 15-second increments, and I stirred in between until everything was melted. I then added the cheese mixture on top of my chicken. While I was placing my cheese mixture on top of my chicken, I had my oven preheating to a low roll of 450 degrees. Once I got all of my cheese mixture added to my chicken, I then placed it in my oven and I broiled it on 450 degrees for a few minutes, just until my cheese turned a slightly brown color. While my chicken was in the oven, I finished preparing the rest of my Parmesan crust. I added in 4 tablespoons of melted butter to a bowl, 3/4 cup of panko breadcrumbs, and 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. I then mixed all of those ingredients together until everything was well combined. Once my cheese had turned slightly brown, I then removed it from the oven and I placed the rest of my Parmesan crust on top of my chicken as well. Once I got my breadcrumb mixture added, I then placed it back in the oven and I broiled it for an additional minute just until my breadcrumbs began to brown slightly. And then it was ready to serve, and for our sides I fixed some sweet peas and some mashed potatoes, and this chicken turned out delicious. It was wonderful. I will definitely be fixing this again, and it was a lot cheaper than going to Longhorn and ordering this off the menu. This night for dinner, I fixed baked ravioli. This was our first time trying this, and oh my goodness, it was so good. It was a hit with my family, and I will definitely be making this again in the near future. It was so easy to make as well. I started off by cooking a 1/2 pound of ground beef, and whenever my ground beef was finished cooking, I then just took that and drained the grease off of it. I then added in a 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano, a 1/2 teaspoon of mustard powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of dry basil leaves, and a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. And a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and 1 teaspoon of hot sauce. The hot sauce does not make it spicy at all. It just helps with the flavor, and if you know me, you know I don't like spicy, so you can trust me on that. And then I added in 1 small sweet onion that I had diced up. I then mixed all of those ingredients together and I cooked it for 5 minutes. After letting that cook for 5 minutes, I then added in 3 cloves of minced garlic, and then I cooked that for an additional minute. I then reduced the heat to low while I prepared my baking dish. In a large baking dish, I added in 3/4 of a cup of marinara sauce in the bottom, and then I just spread that around evenly. I then poured the rest of my 24-ounce jar of marinara sauce into my meat mixture. And then I just mixed all of that together. And then I added in a 1/2 cup of half and half. And then I mixed that up really well, and then I removed it from the heat. And then in a large baking dish, I added in 1/2 of a pack of refrigerated ravioli. I used a 20-ounce package. You can use frozen ravioli if you prefer. You will just have to adjust your cooking time and cook it longer. Once I got my layer of ravioli added, I then added half of my meat mixture on top of the ravioli. And then I topped the meat mixture with about a half a cup of shredded mozzarella cheese. And then I just repeated those layers by adding the rest of my ravioli. And then I added the rest of my meat mixture. And then I topped my meat mixture with about a cup and a half of my remaining mozzarella cheese. And then I covered my baking dish with some aluminum foil. I then stuck it in the oven that I had preheated to 350 degrees and I cooked it for 35 minutes. After cooking for 35 minutes, I then removed my aluminum foil and then I stuck it back in the oven and I broiled it on 450 degrees for a couple of minutes, just until my cheese could turn a slightly brown color. And then it was ready to serve. And here's my bowl, and like I said, this was so good. I'm now going to show you how to make the best apple pie bread. This is a heavenly recipe, and my husband even likes this better than banana bread, and that's saying a lot. I start off by adding a half a cup of packed light brown sugar to a bowl, and then I add in 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. And then I just mix those two ingredients together. And then I just place that to the side, and in my stand mixer I add in 1 stick of butter that I had let soften to room temperature and 2/3 of a cup of granulated sugar. And then I cream the butter and sugar together. If you do not have a stand mixer, don't you worry, you can also use a hand mixer. Once my butter and my sugar are creamed together, I then add in 2 eggs and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And then I mix all of those ingredients together. And then I add in 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And as you will see here in just a minute, I'll also add in a half a cup of milk, and you can add your milk in before you mix your flour and your baking powder together. I just forgot to add my milk, so I had to go back and do that. And then I spray my loaf pan with some Baker's Joy, and that way my bread doesn't stick to my loaf pan. And then I add in half of my batter to my loaf pan. And then I take 2 apples and I cut those up into 2-inch chunks. And then I add half of those apples into my batter, and then I just press those apples down into the batter. I am using Fuji apples because Fuji is our favorite apple, but you can use whatever your family likes, whatever kind of apple you like to bake with, whether it's Fuji, Granny Smith, whatever you like to use. And then I sprinkle on half of my brown sugar and cinnamon mixture. This brown sugar and cinnamon mixture gives it the perfect crunch and that flavor that you desire in an apple pie. I then add my remaining batter on top of that. And then I add in my remaining apples and I press those down into the batter as well. And then I top my apple pie bread with my remaining brown sugar and cinnamon mixture. And then I place it in the oven that I had preheated to 350 degrees and I bake that for 1 hour or until a toothpick inserted comes out clean. And this is what my apple pie bread looks like whenever it comes out of the oven, and I just let that cool completely before removing that from my loaf pan. And then it's ready to serve. That's it for today's video. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.